Hello, welcome to Rockin
Rockin
the
the
Love.
Love.
That's goofy. Okay, I'm Robyn,
And I'm Gil.
and we are here today with you discussing
Being.
being. The theme of the month is May be. 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 What does it mean to be? The power of being. Today is what we're talking about the power of being.
What shows up in us? What does being do for us?
Yeah. And last week we talked about
We talked about how how we can show up and just be who we are and not have to be someone else, not have to be not have to play a part, if you will, but really show up as us, to just be. And so that was kind of the focus last time. We went around and talked about that in various different ways and how that's important in our lives and our relationships to our work and all of that.
and that was super powerful. A lot of people shared. Linda, I remember shared what how she has shifted in her life and all of that, and it was really a great conversation. So before we get too far into that, I want to welcome Wayne with Rainbow Circle Hugs. Yay, Rainbow Circle Hugs. Who doesn't want one of those? Doesn't that sound yummy?
It sounds yummy. You know, it's funny. I pick up little kids sometimes and take, it sounds odd, and take them to an after school program. And
By pickup, he means in the car driving them.
yeah, driving them. Yes. They're not random kids. They're kids that are supposed to come there. And so I had these 3 little girls yesterday, and they were looking for cars so that they could come up with a rainbow of cars. So they were going through the colors of the rainbow and finding each car so they could have a rainbow. So it made me think of the rainbows.
Rainbow love right
Rainbow
there.
love.
Rainbow love in action.
Yep.
So before we get too far into this, you know what you need to do if you're here. You need to like us. You need to say hello in the chat. Let us know where you're calling from. I know that, or watching from, I mean, we have lots of viewers everywhere. So bienvenidos if you're joining us from Mexico out there, Mexico, and where else?
We like our international viewers. So we're always looking for our UK viewers. And of course, those who are from right near home in California.
Or across the country. We are equal opportunity rainbow hugger lovers. So as we are just breathing into that, let me say that last week we started out with a Dr. Seuss quote that was, I don't set out to be different. I set out to be me. People think it's different. Yeah. So how did that show up in your week this week?
Yeah, you know, that shows up interesting in the world because we if we really don't show up to be different, if we really show up to be ourselves, I think it's absolutely right on. People sometimes will come to you and be like, what's different about you, or what are you doing, or you know, they have questions.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think about it. I was in a meeting where there was about 10 of us, and we were just ideas about education and about things that questions and things that we were trying to produce, and somebody said, "Oh, Robyn, I always like to be with you because I love the way you think." And I'm thinking, I think like you think. We all think the same, don't we? Think the same, but we don't. And so it's interesting to see what shows up for me as me, and what people see, because I rarely know what they're seeing. Does that make sense?
Well, and if we're not well, let me ask you this. You do as a profession, you do acting and things. And so you intentionally show up as something if you're doing that, right? I mean, you have a real vision of who that is and how they're going to be and what they're like.
Yes.
But you don't do that when we're in that meeting or when we're talking.
I don't do it consciously.
Right.
Yeah, I don't do it consciously, but I mean, I think there's a understated code of ethics that I live by,
Oh yeah.
of who I am.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we all have that. We have our filters, we have our things that we're working with. But I just mean the sort of difference is that there's a very prescribed thing that you do if you're trying to present a particular person. And if we're just truly being ourselves, we allow ourselves to show up as opposed to trying to prescribe what's going to show up. And maybe that's what part of what they were talking about.
Maybe. I get stuck. I'm questioning. Yes. I mean, I agree with you. And you said, oh yeah, we all do that. And I was thinking about you, my love.
Uh-oh.
But
there's a lot of things I don't do. I know, it's true.
Well, no, but there is some things you might not do as well as others.
Oh.
But I'm wondering, so where does that cut off, and where, you know what I mean? How does that, where does that stop? Like for me, when we're with kids, for example, I take a lot of breaths and don't yell as much as most people in our house.
Mm-hmm.
So, but in theory, people would say that you do that too. They'd be like, oh, Gil's so calm and so kind and so quiet. So is that like, is there levels? Are there levels, like something, we do in front of closed doors, out behind closed doors? I'm just curious. I'm not putting it down.
I think that's all a question of our being. And I think the real question there is what would we do in one place that we wouldn't do in another? And I think sometimes that's the key. If I am trying to negotiate out of certain parts of my life somewhere, then that's not necessarily showing up and being as me. That's showing up and trying to be somebody the other people will like, or the other people will accept, or the other people won't ridicule, or whatever the deal is, right? And yeah, I mean, I think that's what we all do to some degree. I know I do it to some degree, but I think the more comfortable I get with who I am, the more possible it is to just show up and be, and not be afraid of what, the fact that somebody comes and says, you think different, or, that kind of comment, that's okay. You know what I mean?
I do.
Okay, good. Well, we cleared that up, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be here next week. Oh, wait, there's more.
Okay. So anyway, I'm very excited about our guest today. He is a good friend and a great person, and I'm sure he'll be able to shine some light on what happens in front of and behind closed doors, because that's what you ministers do.
That's right.
In private, anyway. Okay. So
we're going to take a quick break and come back, or are we going to introduce John Elliott right now? Oh, I said his name. Are we going to introduce him now? No, let's do this. Let's take a minute. I know we're early. It's been really fast first part, but we want to get our guest in here as soon as possible. So we are going to take a minute, regroup, get our act together, and come back and be with power. Okay. So be sure and join us back right here on New Thought Media Network.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And please help us welcome Center for Spiritual Living in La Mesa, California. Thank you for your monthly donation. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, for your most generous donation. And a special thanks to Hefferlin Foundation for your generous technology grant. And Suze Ajit, thank you for your very generous donation. And a super special thank you to Dr. Tracy Brown, RScP. Thanks for being a super donor. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.
And we're back. Welcome back to Rockin the Love. I'm Robyn.
And I'm Gil. And this is our show for May the 11th, 2022. And our theme is
The Power of Being.
Yes, indeed it is. And we're excited to have you here with us. And we're excited to have our guests with us. And we're excited to jump in.
And we're excited to say hola to Bonnie. You missed it, Bonnie. I gave a whole bienvenidos to our Mexico listeners, but we're happy to have you there. And Bonnie Morgan Gonzalez has a show on New Thought Media Network, and yet she finds the time to be here with us. But you can join her Mondays at noon for Your Doula for Grief, as well as our fabulous producer has a show here on New Thought Media Network, and you can join him on Friday nights for Fireside Chat. It is a mecca of people that can keep you company throughout your week. So be sure and check out newthoughtmedianetwork.org, where you can find all the programs and all kinds of great music and fabulous things. But now, a fabulous thing is going to happen.
So we had the honor today of bringing a guest who knows a lot about being. He's been being for a very long time. Reverend John Elliott is an agape ordained minister. He was my friend and teacher while I was going through ministerial school, and he has continued his work in various areas. But his passion and love for seeing the truth is amazing, and he doesn't give you a lot of BS usually. So we're really happy to have him here and just have a fun time and talk a little bit about the power of being. So welcome, Reverend John.
Thank you. It's great to see the two of you. Dear friends, and for a long time, which is
a very long time.
Yeah.
It's been a while since serving those burritos, hasn't it? For breakfast?
Has been. It
Yeah.
has been. Yes. Yeah, we did a men's ministry thing a long time ago. Yes. Yeah.
In a parking lot that doesn't exist anymore. But anyway, that's another story.
That's a probability, and I could start this off with a very humorous anecdote. I did a lot of things at Agape, especially hospitality, which was organizing events. And so we had a Thanksgiving dinner in the sanctuary, over 500 people. And when the caterer brought in the food and we were about to distribute it, someone kicked the cranberry sauce under the table. So we had no cranberry sauce. So I grabbed Gil, who was my right-hand man, and I gave him a $20 bill, and I said, please, please find cranberry sauce. Well, this dinner lasted 4 hours. And then we cleaned up, which was another hour. Well, probably 5 hours later, I'm about to leave, and here comes Gil trudging up the street. I couldn't find cranberry sauce, but he was dedicated the whole time, which is why certainly I love him, because he's dependable, to say the least.
Yeah, that was a fun day. That one was
a fun day. Yes, I won't even repeat the language that I used when I found the cranberry sauce under the table. Not pretty. Not pretty.
I'm gonna guess it didn't go into that being stage.
No,
it was like being crazy.
And that's a great segue, because I was being nervous and bossy and annoyed and angry and in service, which usually riles me up, or did then. This is 15, 16 years ago, I think, something like that. But you're right. How was I being? So as I discussed with the two of you before, so much of, not my mantra, but I like to ask myself, now that I'm here, how am I being? And so I know how I was being without the cranberry sauce. So that was a tough one.
Well, I think there's so many nuances to that about how are you being? How are we being? Because there's, people say the power of being me, the power to be, the power, I mean, how do we, what's the difference, and what does it really mean to live into the power of being, or the power of being me? I mean, because I don't know about you guys, but I think, I'm not sure they're the same, and yet they're the same, but I'll let you answer.
Yeah, well, for me, it goes back to the source. If I am being, then I'm being because I've been created, and I've been created because I'm connected to something so much larger than me. And so this might not always be comforting, but I'm divinely here, and in the thick of it, I may not remember that. So I think that's why it's a good time to ask the question. But it all comes down to, for me, laws and principles of who I am and how this universe works. And to fall back on that and to realize that and remember that, I think is certainly empowering.
So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, can you explain just a little bit about laws and principles when you say that? Like, what particularly does it encompass?
Sure. And so I was raised with a deity that was pretty judgmental, and with Catholic roots. And I didn't relate at all. Certainly didn't relate. And saw myself, my beingness, as less than, and all the other labels that were put on. And then in time, as someone who's interested in the arts, I found little snippets and glimpses of possibilities and affirmations about my journey, my road, who am I, kind of, in quotes. And then at 50, during a mega life change, I was brought to a community called Agape in Culver City. And I was hearing things that I'd always wanted to hear in one place before, but hadn't. I kind of grabbed them from other places in other ways. And what I learned was to dismiss the old ideas of creation, creativity, and come to more of a scientific understanding. And that's what religious science is. And so when we talk about laws and principles, they are recognizable, they're definable, they can be called upon, and they can be relied upon. And there are a lot of comparisons as a road to understanding with Newton's law. Gravity affects everyone. So if there's a creative, loving presence, then obviously it affects everyone. So I am that. That is all that I am. Although it is so much more than I am. I'm kind of spouting things that I've been taught by mentors along the way. But laws and principles. And so, as I said, comparing, using Newton's laws that are infallible and empirical and provable, that's what we have in religious science, and that's the map, that's the guidepost, that's the affirmation of the journey. And when I taught for a long time, I taught ministerial students, and I taught just lay people who just came in and wanted to know more. And I would say to them that when I took my children to Disneyland, long time ago, my favorite ride was called Peter Pan's ride. And of course, some people have accused me of thinking I am Peter Pan, but we're not going to go there at all. We're not going there. But the thing was, you were in a little booth, and you were up maybe 20 feet off the ground, but it looked like you were surveying all of London. And it was great. And so as an exercise, I have often guided students to just look at your life that way. Look at the trails and the roads and where you've gone and what happened, and see that even though it may seem that you didn't go in the direction that you wanted to, you were still guided and sourced in that journey, whatever that was. And I always use myself as an example. And you guys gave me a microphone, so of course I'm yapping away here. Never give a minister a microphone. I think that's one of the.
It's a rule. It's a law,
isn't it?
It's a principle, I believe.
Yeah, it's a rule. Yeah, no question about it.
Yeah. So something that struck me as you've been talking and knowing you so well, and that is how in the midst of learning these principles and laws and understanding the truth of who we are,
right,
it doesn't make our life perfect.
Well,
it doesn't eliminate opportunities for growth.
No question about it. Of course.
Yeah.
But it's also affirming and comforting to know that there is this guiding presence, not a micromanaging puppet master, but a guiding presence. Ricky Byers-Beckwith, who's one of my favorite artists, one of her lines is, all around you there are signs, but will you remember me? It's like it's all there. And just to cap off what I'd started with the life journey is that I tried to be an actor for like 20 or 30 years. I mean, I really tried, and I never came close. And then suddenly I got the call for ministry once after a year or two. I was at Agape, and I kind of shot right through all of it. And I realized that in my journey, when I was up there looking down, so many of the things that was being trained for, and that as an administrator had to train potential and future ministers for, I had already learned in preparation for acting. So I was articulate. I knew how to handle my nerves. I knew how to analyze a script. Do you know what I mean? So I was being prepared for something that I didn't know was coming up.
Right.
So my being was taken care of, even if I didn't recognize it. And it would have been so much more gentle for me to say, well, I'm trying to be an actor, but I'm certainly open and available to be my greater self, whatever that looks like, wherever that's going to take me, And I still have family members in shock that I'm a minister. It's like, what? It's 20 years later. So either what?
They're still scratching their heads.
Scratching their heads. Exactly.
Well, I just have to let you know that Marge Wingrove says, always give a minister a microphone. So I'm guessing there's people out there that are ministers as opposed to just being married to them.
Well, and again, I was told once that the difference between ministers and lay people is a license.
Yeah.
So you're certainly one of the ministers that I would and have depended upon through the years, Robyn.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I think that's all part of the being is to not, for me anyway, is to not take too seriously ourselves at some level either. I think sometimes we get so caught up in this is who I am, and
and this is what it looks like.
Yeah,
and this is what it looks like, and this is how I'm supposed to project it.
Right.
And those who know me, and especially were part of the Agape 16 years or so that I was there, know my nickname was the Irreverent Reverend, because if I don't absorb it, it's not for me. If it feels airy-fairy, I don't embrace it. I've got it. If I've said it, it's because I've lived it, and I understand it.
Well, and I think that speaks to part of, in order to be, I think that really speaks to what we're talking about, because if you can't feel it, if there's not a part of you that can grab onto it and love it and be, you can't be it. You can't, I can talk all day long about being, full of faith, or being faith. But if I really don't believe, or I can't find that, I can't have it.
I agree. And during those times, I'm going to label what you just said. For me, those desperate times, what do? I had someone who about 6 or 7 weeks ago emailed me and said, I'm really, really afraid. What do you do? And so I had to sit down for an hour and see, what do I do? And spiritual study is just really, really something that absolutely grounds me. So knowing that there's an answer rather than knowing the answer right now, and whatever can bolster you, and of course, prayer and meditation are the two things. But for me, it's spiritual study. And so I borrow from the masters until I've absorbed my understanding. And that's helpful to call upon. But I agree. And as my joke with Robyn, I've been retired about 7 or 8 years. And I said, Jesus was in the desert for 40 days. And I've been in the desert for 6 years. It's like, what the heck is going on here? But trusting, and again, asking the question, now that I'm here, how am I being? And
right.
And so purpose has a lot to do with it. Faith, as you mentioned, and purpose and reminders,
Yeah. And Bonnie said, thank you for the reminder of being in training for a future role that you have no idea of in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, isn't that life on some level? I mean, we have no idea,
mm-hmm.
no matter how well planned out or how thought out it is. Not to say that it doesn't happen according to some's plan sometimes.
Some people, yes.
But
yes.
But we certainly don't always know what or where or when, or sometimes we're very clear on what, but we have no idea when or how, and sometimes we're and sometimes we're just wrong all the way around.
well, yes and no. So much of that. There's also a phrase talking about laws. What is seeking to emerge through me? What is seeking to emerge? And so, what is seeking to emerge now as I go through my daily function, with a goal and a direction, but not with blinders, to be open. Marianne Williamson, one of the very first times I was exposed to spiritualism, and I'm going to call it spiritualism. Of course, now the word has really lost so much of its meaning. I went to a lecture with Marianne Williamson in New York at the town hall, and she said that being so stuck on your future and what it should look like, it's kind of like being in a train station. You're looking down this one tunnel, waiting for this train, And behind you, all kinds of trains are going all kinds of wonderful places. And your back is to them because you just don't know. You might want to look up and see, oh yeah, oh yeah, hey, that's a possibility for me rather than the static attention that may be shielding me from my greater good. And what Gil said a minute ago, there is a part of us that does know. It may not the facts, specifics, but it does know. And so it's always a quality of God that's calling forth, that's seeking to emerge,
Well, I think it's really interesting, because one of the things that I've come to be more and more comfortable with is the idea of allowing. And I think that, what's seeking to emerge, that's all that. I think when we can get into if we can get into the place of allowing whatever it is to show up, instead of trying to make it show up, then we get the opportunity to see those things. And I think mostly what we do is often what happens is we cover up what's coming up. We try to suppress it because it doesn't make sense,
right, to
something we've created in our heads. Some scenario that we have, this doesn't fit. So, it's like the stories, from insurance companies of the people driving down the highway and they crash into a plane. Well, the plane landed on the highway and they didn't see it. And they didn't see it because it made no sense to their brain that a plane is on the highway. Right. It's that kind of idea.
Yeah.
And we just totally miss it. It's huge and right in front of us, but we don't see it.
Yes. And it's coming back to, there's simple phrases and I'm not a fan of simple phrases, but when they're true, and that's all there is to it. And so we are guided, sourced, and supplied. That's it, the bottom line. And often when people say, well, I'm dealing with this. Yes, you're dealing with this, or maybe you're not dealing with this, which needs to erupt to clear the way for that which does want to. So even in an uncomfortable situation, you go, well, how am I guided and sourced and supplied with this? Because you need to deal with it, rise above it, and allow whatever's coming through to come through.
Whatever's coming up.
Yeah.
I want to just say hi to Christine, who's joining us from Kenya. Hello,
Wow.
Christine. We're so glad to have you. Beautiful to have you here.
That is not a train I expected to go by. Kenya. That's great.
Great.
Yeah. So how we say a lot, just be. And how, for the average person, how do we just be when we can't pay our bills and we are worried about something and blah, blah, blah? You know how it snowballs. What would you say, are the first steps in being?
Surrender. You don't have to know what you're surrendering to. It doesn't have to be a deity. It doesn't have to be an all-encompassing, powerful, loving thing in the sky. Sometimes I surrender to love. Sometimes I surrender to peace. Sometimes I just surrender because I have no idea what's going on. That's it. So surrender, again, so much language and concepts I had to reframe and have a greater understanding. To me, surrender is a white flag and you lost. You lost everything that you own.
Right. I give up.
I give up. Yeah. But how about I give up to something greater, and then there's no loss there?
Yeah, I give up what I think I know. I give up, right.
What I think I know, right. So surrender helps a lot. I've been in 12-step for about 25 years. As a matter of fact, I celebrated my 25th anniversary last week. And
wow.
The surrender. Yeah, thank you. So I'll say the serenity prayer 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 times in a row. Bang, 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 bang. And what that does is just, it clears my head about this thing that I'm obsessing about right now, and maybe I can get clear. So in answer to your question, I think a simple thing is an activity that takes your mind off what it is. A walk around the block during this storm the storm in your head, not the storm outside. They say, take the body and the mind will follow. And clarity may come. And there's, again, this may sound airy-fairy, but believe me, it's not. There are 2 R's standing for reality. One is the greater reality, that is the whole, the perfection, love, peace, joy, harmony. And then within that is a small r, and that's our day-to-day concerns. That's our day-to-day concerns. And for me, the goal is to pull down from that larger bubble into my smaller bubble, that eternal thing. When I first got to religious science, it called God a thing. It's like, okay, what? That thing. And Mother, Father, God, which, what? Really? You can have, really? It doesn't have to be separated into a masculine figure, So opening up to possibilities, greater possibilities. And if something's uplifting you or if it's bringing you down.
Yeah, I think it's really, surrender is really important. And like fully surrendering, not knowing what's coming next, and just trusting. That's huge.
It is huge. And what I've learned in the last few years is to take away so much judgment about so many religions and what they do, because they do serve a purpose, even though I don't really like the concepts around them. But as we learned in religious science, that all religions are the same. They're all the same. There's one creative power, and it's creative, and we're part of it. So therefore, we're part of everything. I mean, they say it in different ways and things like that. But my best friend, who was, I'm not really sure what his religious beliefs were, but he would say, God has taken me this far, and it's not going to drop me on the head now, which was just too abstract for me at all. Completely, it was like, what? But it served him. That was his surrender. That's the way he surrendered.
Right. He was able to lean into that God who had gotten him to this point.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. I always think that's interesting when we talk about, people's different religions. And I've been asked recently, do you accept people from such and such? Yeah. Or do you accept atheists? Or do you accept, right?
Yeah.
And if I'm going to say that I'm embodying this concept that's, in New Thought and Science of Mind, that it truly is all one, mm-hmm. then how could I not accept? How could I not embrace?
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
And even if somebody shows up and they make me uncomfortable somehow because of what they're saying, sure. or what they're doing.
Sure.
In order for me to be, I have to surrender to that, at some level, and know that it's that big R is bigger than the R that I'm seeing.
Yeah, and to know that they're on their own path. They're on their own, and if I'm guided in source and supplied, then they're guided in source and supplied, no matter how much they irritate me.
And by God, they do. Most of them.
By God,
they
do.
The ones that we're closest to probably do it the best, but the people out there in the other religions are fine.
Yeah, without being ethereal, they say people come into our lives. What is it, for a season, a reason, or a lifetime, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
or an aggravation. I think that's
the ones closest to us. Yeah, are our teachers, right? I'm with it.
Okay, 100%. I'm gonna stop you guys, because I think, if I'm remembering correctly, Christine is a ministerial student in Kenya, so I don't want her to take on this ministerial jovialness.
Oh no!
I don't want her to get confused in what's the principles.
She needs to have joy. That's one of the qualities.
You got to have joy. And I just want to mention that, John, I don't know if you know this, but there is a show on New Thought Media Network called Ministers Talking Shit. So,
wow, I love it.
you know, we might be able to get you a guest spot on that if you'd like to.
I could definitely fit the criteria. No question about it. Just as an aside, I had one student come to me, in my office, and she closed the door and she said, "Reverend John, this whole place, you're the only one I can talk to." And I was flattered. It was like, oh. And she said, "Because you swear."
And it's an important quality, I
No
think.
question about it. Yeah.
All right. And as we go to this break, so I'm going to just say also we have one more minister in training that has one more test to go. So that is our producer, Michael Mangus. And we just want everyone to send him big loving prayers for this last test, knowing that there are no tests in spirit. There are no tests. There are only testimonials of the love and grace of God. So we just know he's going to take that into his last test as he emerges, the mighty pastor, bishop, minister that he is. All right. So come right back and we will get it together. We won't be quite as jovial right here.
Oh, yes, we'll be jovial. We will be jovial, but we'll be back and we'll tie up today's show and spend a little more time with Reverend John and have a good time. So join us back here on New Thought Media Network.
And we're back. We're Rockin the Love here on New Thought Media Network. I'm Robyn.
And I'm Gil.
And this is our guest, Reverend John Elliott.
Reverend John Elliott is an agape ordained minister. I'm sorry, there was another word I was trying to think of in there.
Yeah, don't say that on the air.
Don't say that on the air.
The word.
The word you were
Oh,
thinking.
the word I was thinking. Yeah, you're right. That's what the problem was. I was trying to figure out a word that would be acceptable on the air.
Self-censoring, yes.
I didn't want to say anything like we put on your mug. Anyway,
Which I still have.
Okay, you two, settle down. Let's rein it in.
It's like a reunion.
All right. Reverend John is also a dad and a grandpa,
yes.
and soon to be a great grandpa.
Yes.
There's a lot he knows. He's had a lot of experience with being. So I just want to, for a second, I just want to talk about the practicality. I know we've touched on the overall picture of it, but like, how do you be in a relationship, whether that's with your boss or whether it's with your partner or, you know, your parents or your siblings, you know, like how, because we all have different roles we play with all those people and different fears around those relationships. So how do you move into really being in those kind of situations?
No question about it. And when you started with the word relationship, I thought, well, ask somebody who has one. Hello. And it's been about 10 years, but then you expanded it. And as a parent, of course, we're always learning and growing. And during the break, I just wanted to reaffirm that I'm not the answer man. That's it. I'm not the guy, you know, behind the curtain who knows everything, or in front of the curtain, because my understandings and beliefs are hard won, and they've been tested, and they could change a lot, you know, tomorrow. I don't think the foundation and the core could, but it's taken a long time to get there. So it's not about this is the answer I have for you. This is the answer I have for me, and if it inspires you, you know, and that's the role of a minister, to inspire, and for those around him, music and the rest, to inspire him. And so it's you know, it's a full circle about inspiration. And so as far as children go, during the first 10 or 15 years, I thought I was the end all, be all, the teacher, the everything, all of it. And I'm glad I did at the time. You know, they may still have resentments after 40 years, but I have no idea. But I think I did my job as the best I could. And at a certain point, they both became independent, if not financially, certainly in their thinking. And I had said to my former wife, I said, we're going to raise two independent women. And we did. And now I'm sorry. You know what I mean? It's just like, that's getting off the topic. That's just my humor. And that's at a certain point, I realized, especially when my older daughter became pregnant, that I'm no longer the teacher anymore. I'm the example. And I'm the facilitator, the aide, the helper, you know. And now they're both adult, and I won't give their ages because they'll kill me. They're both adult, let's say, and I've had to pretty much censor myself, because there's always that thought about, you know, well, I know better. Well, I've been there. You're going to do that? What? You know? And so when they ask, I tell. If they don't ask, I don't tell, but I listen.
But I think you hit it. I think you really hit it when you said being the example, because if we can live it, if we can stand in it in the face of whatever we would really like to do or say or think we know or whatever we want to fix, then we're really being it and allowing people to see it and to catch on to it. Does that make sense?
Yes, no question about it. And the greatest example I've two that come to mind, two great examples. One was my adopted aunt, who was my angel mother. She was my spiritual mother, and she was just always loving. I mean, she had all her, you know, humanity, but she was just, I can never remember her for a minute not being loving to me. And then, as you both know, there's a woman called Lisa Sprinkles, and she was just that always. Talk about being, you know, that was one who really, really exhibited it. And in relationships, for me at this stage and age, it's be there. put me in a one-on-one relationship and I may become very needy. I'm not really sure. So much of this stuff could seem to go out the window, and I have to remind myself. I don't know. But we do have a lot of knowledge within us, all knowledge within us. And so what came up for me was the listening thing. And I'm glad it came out and it wasn't planned. But I think hearing the other person is also seeing the other person. And that's that. And then we have no choice but being equal, and from a place of equal standing, I think things can be worked out.
So we wanted to share something that we pulled out of an article. Really, and it's one of those simple phrases, simple things. But on the topic of being, the statement is that what we need to do is love, accept, allow, and surrender unconditionally. And I was thinking about what you were saying, and it's really true with kids, et cetera, that we love them, we accept them for who they are and what's going on. We accept each other for who we accept our circumstances. We accept those things for what it is. We allow whatever's trying to come forth, and we surrender to the bigger picture. And we have to do it unconditionally, because if we put conditions on it, then we stop it.
That's right.
And we're no longer the example. We become the teacher in a way someone can look at us and go, yep, they taught me how not to be. I think it's true. What do you think?
I do. And I think, it goes back to where John started when he said, I don't remember exactly how you said it, John, but about now you're here and your job is to be.
How am I being? The question is not how did I get here, because that we can tell a story, boy. We love to tell stories. We'll tell a story about anything which has nothing to do with the actual
anything
circumstance.
But I think, I think so much of the journey, of our personal journey, is to witness ourselves and to witness our being and how we are being. And if anything, that's the homework I would give people for the week, or the growth work, is that really just notice where you are and how you're being and how you want to react. And I can say honestly, at any given time, I may have 3 or 4 ways of being within me that I choose from, like a deck of cards. Which one am I going to pull? I can react this way, this way, this way, So I think it's really about, surrender. When we surrender, really putting those things into play that Gil said, of loving, accepting, and allowing unconditionally.
Right. And there's a concept that's taught, and I don't know where I first heard it, of the compassionate witness for ourselves. Ourselves.
Right. It's not the judgmental witness. It's not the one who goes and goes, oh, there's where you screwed up. That was wrong. Yeah. It's more.
That's right. How did I get here? What did I do wrong? Yeah. No, none of that. Yeah.
And I will take from this day the Peter Pan ride, because I think that's a really great visual for that idea of really observing something in a very different way. And just a side note, that was my father's favorite ride.
Mine too.
Wow. Yeah.
And I would say that truly our very own space cowboy Wayne leaves us with words of wisdom from the Wizard of Oz, that you had the power all along, my dear. And it's really trusting that within us that we do have that power, and the power to surrender, the power to allow, the power to be.
And so when we are in when we're in the power, that is the power of being. When we're in our beingness, that is the power of being, because suddenly we can just be, and it allows us to do all these other things, to really accept, to love, to surrender, to be unconditional in our love, to be,
Yeah.
That's my thought.
And to be guided. And I agree with you.
Be guided. Yes, absolutely. Wow. Okay. Are we sending people out with anything they have to do?
That's it.
Just do the Peter Pan ride on yourself.
Just begin to notice, just begin to watch, just begin to look at your life with the overview and all of those things. I mean, take whichever of those resonates with you and see what you can come up with this week. See what you see if there's, it's all of the spiritual journey is kind of like always having a bottle of 409 and cleaning the window a little. You get to clear off a little more and look deeper, and clear off a little more and look deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yay, deeper.
So I really want to thank Reverend John for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
This was really fun. And
if you'd like to connect with Reverend John, there's a way to do it. Reverend John does spiritual counseling sessions, and he's available for all kinds of things.
And apparently he'll cuss at you. We're not sure how that.
Swear
words.
But you can depend on I'll cuss on something, like the wall or the door.
Good.
So
all right.
You're getting a thumbs up from our producer, so expect a call right before his final tomorrow.
Oh, gotcha. No question about it.
So there's his email, RevJohnElliott123@gmail.com. Feel free to do that. If you liked our show, please go to New Thought Media Network and just, drop a little something in the till. We pretend you're taking us out for a cup of coffee.
That's right.
Buy us a cup of coffee right there on New Thought Media. Okay. So that's it for this week. We'll be back next week with our guest, Dr. Davina Katulski, and we'll talk some more about who we are and who we're going to be.
She'll share a little bit about her book, and it'll be fun.
That's what it'll be. So you know what to do this week. Look at your life and rock the love.
Rock the love.
Terrific.
Bye,
See y'all
everybody.
next week. Bye.